On a sweltering Sunday evening in August 1971, millions of Americans gathered around their television sets, unaware they were about to witness the end of the monetary system that had governed their lives since World War II. In just 17 minutes, President Richard Nixon would announce a decision that would transform the very nature of money itself. A decision made in absolute secrecy by 15 men in a wooded retreat. Triggered by a staggering fact, America's gold, once 20,000 metric tons, enough to fill 4 Olympic swimming pools, had been hemorrhaging away at an alarming rate. By that fateful summer evening, more than half of it was gone. The year was 1971, and America was a nation under pressure. The Vietnam War was draining both blood and treasure. Inflation was eating away at paychecks, hitting nearly 6% monthly. 6 out of every 100 Americans couldn't find work. But beneath these visible struggles lay a hidden crisis that threatened the very foundation of American financial power. Since the end of World War II, the United States had stood as the banker to the world. Every dollar was backed by gold at $35 per ounce, a solemn promise that had underpinned the entire global financial system. But by 1971, foreign banks held $14 billion in claims against America's gold reserves of just $13.2 billion. The math was simple and terrifying. There was enough gold in Fort Knox to keep the promise. The crisis reached its breaking point on August 11, 1971, when British officials quietly requested a $3 billion gold transfer from Fort Knox. 2 days later, on a warm Friday afternoon, a helicopter lifted off from the White House lawn. On board was President Nixon, accompanied by 15 of his most trusted advisors, including Treasury Secretary John Connally and Federal Reserve Chairman Arthur Burns. Their destination, Camp David, Maryland. Their families were told only of a vague weekend trip. No press was informed. No allies were consulted. In rustic cabins nestled among Maryland's trees, these 15 men debated the fate of the global monetary system. Treasury Secretary Connally, a tough-talking Texan who had Nixon's ear, argued forcefully for decisive action. Federal Reserve Chairman Burns, traditionally a voice of caution, found himself confronting numbers that defied conventional solutions. The United States, once the proud holder of 20,000 metric tons of gold after World War II, had watched its reserves plummet to just 8,333 tons. France, led by the shrewd Charles de Gaulle, had been particularly aggressive in demanding gold for their dollars since 1965, leading a wave of foreign nations who were losing faith in the American promise. The situation paralleled a bank run in slow motion, but this bank held the world's reserve currency, and its collapse would shake the foundations of global finance. As these men gathered in their secluded retreat, they knew they were about to make a decision that would ripple through history. By Sunday afternoon, the decision was made. At precisely 9 p.m. Eastern Time, President Nixon sat before television cameras in the Oval Office. The teleprompter rolled, and with it, the fate of the global monetary system shifted. "I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets," Nixon declared, his words carrying the weight of economic revolution. "Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation." But this was more than just closing the gold window. Nixon unveiled a series of dramatic measures that would become known as the Nixon shock: a 90-day wage and price freeze, a 10% surcharge on imports. The end of the gold standard was packaged as part of a broader plan to protect the American dollar and protect American jobs. The response was immediate and seismic. When markets opened on August 16th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average surged 33 points, the largest single-day gain of Nixon's presidency. But across the Pacific, the Bank of Japan was frantically buying dollars, pouring through $1.3 billion in just 2 days to maintain the yen-S peg at 360 to the dollar. In Europe, the reaction was one of controlled chaos. The Swiss had already seen this coming, abandoning the Bretton Woods system just days before on August 9th. French ships were literally en route to collect their gold when Nixon's announcement hit the airwaves. By December, the world's financial leaders gathered at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, hoping to salvage some semblance of order. The result was a 7.9% devaluation of the dollar, setting gold at $38 per ounce. But it was too late. By February 1973, the system of fixed exchange rates was dead. Currencies began to float freely against each other, marking the true beginning of our modern financial era. Today, we find ourselves in eerily familiar territory. Just as in 1971, America faces mounting inflation, persistent trade deficits, and challenges to dollar supremacy. The numbers are different, but the underlying tensions feel the same. China now plays the role that Europe once did, holding vast dollar reserves and quietly questioning the dollar's dominance. Central bank digital currencies loom on the horizon, threatening to reshape the monetary landscape just as dramatically as Nixon's decision did 50 years ago. ago. The legacy of that August weekend extends far beyond economics. The temporary suspension of gold convertibility opened the door to an era of unprecedented monetary expansion. Global debt has swelled beyond $300 trillion, a number that would have been incomprehensible in 1971. The inflation that followed Nixon's decision reached 11% by 1975, while unemployment hit 8.5%. Introducing Americans to the painful phenomenon of stagflation. Perhaps most importantly, that weekend at Camp David marked the moment when money itself changed character. No longer was it anchored to anything tangible. Instead, it became what we know today, a system built entirely on trust in governments and central banks. As we face our own economic challenges, the echoes of Nixon's decision continue to reverberate, reminding us that what seems impossible today might become reality tomorrow. The story of the Nixon shock isn't just a tale of economic history, warning about how quickly the foundations of financial security can shift. In just one weekend, 15 men in a secluded Maryland retreat fundamentally altered the nature of money for billions of people across generations. The parallels to our present situation are impossible to ignore. Just as in 1971, we face a confluence of challenges: mounting government debt, persistent inflation, and growing questions about dollar hegemony. But there's a crucial difference. In 1971, the United States still had gold as its ace in the hole. Today, we're replaying with a hand that consists entirely of fiat currencies backed by nothing but faith in the system itself. The lessons of 1971 suggest that when financial systems reach their breaking point, changes don't come gradually, they come suddenly, often over a weekend, when the markets are closed and the public has no time to react. As the saying goes, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. If you found this deep dive into monetary history enlightening, take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. We're dedicated to uncovering these crucial historical moments that continue to shape our financial future. Share this video with someone who needs to understand why the decisions made in 1971 still matter today. For those interested in learning more, I have included links in the description to primary sources and declassified documents from that fateful weekend at Camp David. Remember, understanding history isn't just about looking backward. It's about being prepared for what might come next.